Well, welcome Tuesday at 7. Creatives, artists, friends, and such. Tonight we are interviewing with Jeremy Cotrell. You guys have probably seen some of the advertisements for this evening, and he's really a jack of all trades, and so we're going to be talking about a bunch of things, but we don't actually jump into the interview until 7 o'clock, so we have a few minutes to go out there. I tagged Beth, which I know she's sharing that out. If you want to share, I tagged you in it as well. If you wanted to share that out,
Sure.
You want to share it out now?
Yeah.
Feel free to do that. Last week, if you joined us or watched, we had a whole lot of views. Beth and I actually went down to like the Loudonville area, and we interviewed Flo and John Gepperth at the Mohican Haunted Schoolhouse. And we had some behind-the-scenes tour and kind of talked to them about starting at Yard Hunt and then actually buying a school and starting a professional venture. So last week was a great one, and here in a few minutes, we're going to go ahead and give away that T-shirt. You've got a giveaway for tonight, right?
Yep, I brought a
Hey, Beth,
T-shirt.
you want to hand over that T-shirt? And
she's going on strike, folks.
yeah. So if you share tonight, we'll put your name in for the drawing for next week, and there is not only
We got a shirt and a CD of a band of mine called Genius Loci, along with my friend Joe Gall, who's also friends of yours as well. And yeah, this is kind of one of the more different musical projects I've worked on. It's a little darker, a lot of electronic elements and guitar, and very moody and stuff. But yeah, shirt and our demo CD there.
nice. So as people are signing on, if you share, your name will go into a drawing, and then we'll draw out that CD and that T-shirt next week, and then we'll mail that out to the winner. This week, I imagine folks are probably signing on. Beth, you can take a photo.
Do that too.
And in just a few minutes, we're going to do the drawing, and then we're going to jump into the interview and talk about where Jeremy's creative energies are going today and his journey, which has been
Whichever way the wind blows.
Whichever way the wind blows, and knowing you since like mid-90s?
I'd say probably officially maybe 2000-ish.
2000-ish?
Yeah.
2000, so
About when
20
I
20
went
years.
up to Bloodview, I would say around then. Well, when I came back there. I was there as a student in the 90s, but...
Gotcha.
I
20
always forget that.
Yeah.
20 years. That's crazy. But
Yeah.
in the 20 years that we've known each other, we've worked on a couple of projects, collaboration projects, and then I watched you do some crazy work, some painting, some writing, some music, a lot of music, some more music, some instruments, some Viking, some leather work. I don't know what you don't do. Maybe that's a better question.
Plumbing, apparently, as
Plumbing.
I learned this week.
But
Plumbing, I do not do.
But isn't there some plumbing like instruments? Like you could probably use the tubes to make noise, right?
I've never used any myself, but yeah, there can be. But yeah. I bang on my pipes. That's about how I try to fix them. I'm like, come on.
Yeah. All right, so last week we interviewed John and Flo. For those folks who are just joining on, this was, I don't know if I'm even in frame, but this was the giveaway. It's kind of cool. It feels old school, glow in the dark.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and choose the winner. Beth, you want to reach in?
Sure.
I was like the off-camera reach in. And
Corrine Rittenauer.
Corrine, congratulations. We'll get your address and send this out. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to hand this off to Beth. And we're going to go ahead and jump into this interview. Again, for those who share, we got a T-shirt and a CD.
Yep.
To give away for next week. So
Are you on Instagram?
I am. Kung Fu Viking.
That's right.
Kung Fu
I knew
Viking.
it wasn't Jeremy.
Anyway, so I usually start off the interviews with just a question, just to kind of start conversation, and then we'll kind of backtrack and take a look at your journey. So, if you had to choose one, thing, and so it's kind of a multiple choice. Would you rather bowl a perfect game, which you've done that, right? So 300 game, a perfect game. Would you rather play upright bass in front of a large audience, or would you rather spend your weekend at a Viking event?
Sure.
So 2020?
Well, I've done all three. So if I had to choose one of them, it's a hard one. It's somewhere between the second and third. Playing the upright in front of a large crowd, that would be amazing. Spending the weekend Viking with a lot of my friends, that would be great as well. I would probably pick the second one, only because I think music, no matter what kind of random thing I'm trying to do, music is kind of the one thing I always go back to. So as much as, all the things I love all of them fairly equally, but I think the music-related one would probably end up being the one that I would pick.
Go back.
So
that's great. So take us back to early years and whatever that means for you. Some people will say that's.
I feel like I'm going to channel Chunk in the Goonies when the Fratellis make him spill his guts.
So early years, creative. Like, where did you first discover, and in what areas? I mean, was it early music? Was it drawing? Was it?
Well, music's always been a part of my life. Listening to music, like being at home, hanging out with my mom and stuff as a young kid. Even my dad would listen to certain kinds of music, like bluegrass and such, which is kind of where I got that from. My mom listened to, lots of music of the time and older, like oldies type stuff, but that was always there. We had a little Fisher-Price record player, and here at the Lanes we used to have a jukebox with 45s, of course, and when they would refill it, we would get all the old ones, so I would kind of go through and listen to them. I didn't really know what I was listening to, but a lot of those songs stuck with me. So I was always listening to music. As far as like drawing and things, as a kid, I loved to draw all the time. At one point later on, like middle school, I liked to draw comic books, and I wanted to draw comic books and do that. So, you locked that door over there?
I did.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
That was a public service announcement from Tuesday at 7, folks. But, I always, as a young kid, used to draw a lot. Early mid-'80s, video games were big, and we would play video games here. My favorite was always Gauntlet and playing pinball machines, which I still love. We would always draw our own video game levels. We had my mom made us these pieces of paper with like a TV screen that was blank and a blank pinball machine. So we would design our own pinball machines and video games. So that sticks out to me a lot of something that I just love to do. We'd have pages and pages of these things. So. Then as I got older, again, I loved comic books, so I always wanted to draw comic books for a while. I have friends still that want to talk about them, and they're like, oh, do you remember when this happened and that? I'm like, I have no idea what happened to them. I just looked at the pictures because I liked the artwork, But yeah, so drawing was mainly my thing for a long time, and now I rarely draw. Like the past 20 years, unless I have to sketch out an idea for something, I don't have a sketchbook that I keep with all sorts of stuff. I just do the different things that I do. But yeah.
And you said you keep coming back to music. So and you brought a couple of the instruments. Were you in school band? Did you? What did you play back then?
Starting in 5th grade. So you could be in band. I remember you could be in orchestra in 4th grade and play the violin. I always thought that when you were a kid, that the instruments that you had to choose from were never that exciting. Especially if you're listening to rock music or, in the 80s, it was like Def Leppard. I was in elementary school. I remember listening to Def Leppard and Motley Crue and stuff like that. Sorry, I was younger than you. But yeah, so, listening to that kind of music, you want to play, I can play an instrument, cool, and then it was like, you can play a violin. in 4th grade. So I waited to 5th grade where you could play. I played drums, so I played snare drum. So I actually played drums through high school. I was in band. I was in marching band in 9th grade. I moved schools in 10th, and I stopped doing anything extracurricular. And had a drum set, had a couple bands. One band we had a practice space downtown. It was their brother's studio, and he had a party one night and all my stuff was stolen. So that was the end of my drum playing career. So, I'm never going to become John Walsh. But but yeah, so partway through high school, I started playing. I picked up guitar mainly because I wanted to play like heavy metal and such. So again, just always playing stuff. Like music was a big part of my life through high school. That was when I was old enough to start going to like hardcore and punk shows from age 14 onwards. So that became my life. So of course I wanted to play that kind of music through that time frame. So it's just kind of always been the constant, no matter what random silly thing I've been into, and that even goes with the different musical styles that I'm still into. But yeah.
And you've been in how many bands would you say? It might be even hard to count back, right? Ish.
A couple.
10?
Somewhere at least 10.
10?
10 to 15 probably throughout my life, I would say.
And you've probably played the gamut of instruments and styles and...
Yep. Yeah, I can touch multiple instruments. I'm not exceptionally good at any specific one, but yeah, as far as instruments goes, I play the upright bass. That's mainly what I do in a few bands now. Of course, with Genius Loci, I do a lot of synthesizer stuff as well as some guitar and singing.
Lost State of Franklin?
Yeah, Lost State of Franklin. I play upright, banjo a little bit on there. Played a little mandolin for a hot minute. Can't remember how to do that. Again, synthesizers, some keyboards, and then some of these strange folk instruments that I brought as well.
You know what? Introduce us to some of these instruments. 'Cause
Sure.
since we're kind of talking music, let's talk about music, and then we'll talk about some of the other things that you've done in the past and that you're currently doing as well.
Sure. So we'll bring this one up first. So this is now a couple of these that I'm going to show you I made. So this is a lyre or a lyre. This is kind of a compact version I made based off of a design that some guy had already made online. It was meant for traveling, and I was doing a couple events and needed to do music at a wedding at a Viking event in Dallas last year. So this conveniently fits in my backpack. I carry it on the plane. It's got 6 strings. The shape itself is just just a generic shape. It's not as rounded as it should be. These fittings are from a different lyre that was found called the Sutton Hoo lyre. So it has a bunch of these fittings on there, and there's somebody that makes reproductions of them. So I put them on there because they look nice, little enameled ravens. But anyways,
and you made this instrument, right?
So I made this. It's mahogany. At the time, I had some hard time finding like decent top wood like you would for a guitar. So this is kind of like a veneer, but it served my purpose at the time. It's got some ebony accents on it, an ebony bridge and a tailpiece here. The strings themselves, these are either classical guitar strings or ukulele strings you could use. It's basically the same kind of thing. Because what they probably would have used was gut, like animal gut type stuff. So it's not too loud. So that's that one.
Very nice.
Yeah. And
Now, do you improvise the music for this, or is there lyre music out there?
I don't know how to read music, so and I never really took much. Again, I played drums through school, so when I was taught to look at music, it was like, oh, here's the rhythm of the beat that you hit on your snare drum. So yeah, in recent times I've kind of learned on my own a little bit more about theory and such, but Yeah, like I said, this is tuned basically A and then C, D, E, F, G, A. So there's kind of a natural melody within that scale that's on there, so you can kind of just pluck around and noodle around. But like that was part of a piece that I had written for another project I do with Joe Gall. But yeah, so I just either mess around and find what sounds nice and do that.
And this goes along with you often to Viking events or
Yeah, so-
outdoor?
Yeah, when we're hanging out doing stuff, or if we're at a weekend event or whatever, I'll bring that. And also the next instrument, which I'm about to show you as well. So, and we've used this on some recordings. I have a couple home done recordings with Joe that we did, and then I have a professional one that we did as well that came out pretty amazing. But yeah, so this goes, it's a nice size to travel everywhere. It's not as loud because it's such a smaller, hollow area, but
Yeah.
it serves its purpose.
All right, for those, as Joe's pulling out, or Jeremy's pulling out his next instrument, for those who share, you have the chance to win CD and T-shirt from one of his. Actually, that's why I was thinking of Joe's, because this is your and Joe's
Yeah.
project.
Yep.
Genius Loci. Now this
right.
is
So this is a Scandinavian folk instrument. Doesn't quite go far back to the Viking age, but a lot of modern. There's kind of a revival and that feeling as far as music goes, and a lot of the bands will use this instrument because it is a Scandinavian folk instrument with some history to it, at least in their regions, you know. So this one specifically, this is called a yohiko. It's also related and it's basically the same instrument as a toggle harpa, which you see in some of the other, like Norway and Sweden.
come in on that one, because this is really cool.
So, like toggle harpa means
Thank you.
tail harp. So, because the strings are traditionally made out of horsehair, as which this bow is. But I found playing in our humid climates in the summer outside, it doesn't quite tune at all. So, this is synthetic strings made out of fishing line. You basically take a bunch of strands together and you twist them as you tie them up here. And of course, you have a bow with horsehair and rosin as well. So it's got a couple modern things on it, like my little micro tuners down here, which makes it a little easier to tune. But so I added a strap because it's easier for me to play standing it up than sitting in the traditional way that they normally play it. So, and then, you know, you just bow it like you would like any other bowed instrument, violin, etc. And then to make the notes, since there's no frets, you actually touch your fingers to the string. So. So. So yeah, it's got a nice, deep, kind of harsher sound.
Yeah.
With the, so if it actually had the horsehair, it has a little even harsher of a sound to it, which is kind of the signature thing of the instrument.
Now, how are you introduced and learn to play such instruments?
Well, I'm not sure at this point what sparked me to go on that journey with figuring out how to make and play these. At some point, I came across a band that most people that are into this kind of stuff have heard of, Vordruna, from Norway, and they did do some music on the Viking show in the first season, and then after that, he did work with the composer to help make music for the show, not just use their stuff. But I was just doing some reading on instruments and Viking age instruments and music. Again, that's not from the Viking age, but I came across this band and found that he had these instruments that he either made one or somebody had made one for him. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, that's great. Like I was messing around with woodworking at the time, and you know, I'm like, I could try to do this. So that's the second one of those I made. The first one was a little boxier. It's like the toggle harpa, as I was talking about. It looks like a big rectangle. So yeah, I just messed around in the shop and made one. And then the Lear, that's my third one of those. It's probably my best made one so far. Joe Gall has my first one. I made another one for a friend, and then I have an additional one that I made at home. So those I just kind of, again, as you go on, you learn the processes that work better and what makes the instrument sound like it's supposed to sound. So yeah, just experimenting and playing with and swearing in the shop. And
Do you find that making your own instrument and getting to know these, does that change or enhance your upright bass and the banjo? Like, is the relativity there?
I think because I think of as the upright as the main instrument I play, so I'm pretty comfortable with what I do within the realm of what I do with it. So it's always nice and easy to go back to pick this up and just do it without thinking. So this one where, you know, I've watched, you know, I don't play that well. Like I play it to do what I need it to do and get the sounds out of it that I want. Making the instrument definitely gives you a different relationship with it of, you know, you're comfortable, you made it, you know exactly what you should be doing, how it's going to react to stuff as well. But I think playing anything gets you better at everything else that you do. Like just the fundamentals of doing it and working with a little bit of a different thing, you know, and seeing how that works. When you go back to your comfortable instrument, it just, you know, you get better.
And you got a guitar back here too.
I do have a guitar back there. I didn't make that though.
Are you gonna strum that for us?
I could strum something.
That would be great.
So we're going from weirdo electronic dark music to Viking
Keyboards,
music
to Viking music
to some hillbilly music.
And now, is the upright bass the largest instrument that you play?
Yeah.
Is that the largest instrument that's out there, or that you've played,
That
or
I-
are there larger ones?
Yeah, I've got two basses at home. Those are definitely size-wise. That would be it. So I'll play one of my other band songs. Now, keep in mind, I normally play the bass in these bands. So I'm not going to be doing any Yngwie Malmsteen shredding over here. So, all right. I can go back a little farther?
No, don't.
Oh, don't. Oh, okay.
You're on the edge.
All right. Don't know how the sound's coming through on that. So this is a song, and again, I'm going to do my best on the guitar playing the chords, but this is a song from a band I have with my brother, Aaron, and our friend Denny called A-Train and the Steamers. It's been around for a long time, and we still play out occasionally, and haven't written anything new in like 10 years, but this is one of our originals called Bottom of the Glass. It's about drowning your sorrows. So. Well, I was thinking about you while I was getting stoned. I hear your voice while I was drinking alone. Well, I was thinking about you while I was getting stoned. I've been here for every night and day since you left me. Things just ain't been the same. Since you've been gone, I found a new baby at the bottom of the glass is where coming back, so just leave me be. There's that one.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Love that.
Thanks.
But if you share and you win next week, you're not going to hear this song. You're going to hear
No.
your synthesized.
Yeah, you're gonna hear some moody electronic bass stuff with some very watery, reverby guitar. You know, Joe Gall's on there. Yeah, it's kind of like I kind of describe it as like the Cure and Peter Murphy and Enigma had a baby. That's kind of how I can describe that.
And then you also Novocaine Halo is another. Have you did anything with Novocaine Halo?
So that was me and Joe also. That was the first thing we ever did when we met. We wanted to do like some industrial type stuff, and it was very techno-y industrial. And you know, we just got together and recorded all this stuff. Never figured out how we could do it live. Never played a show live. But we had a song called Thread that was on a Cleveland electronic compilation, Synth Cleveland comp actually. And I don't think that one's not on here. So we actually took Thread and we kind of modernized it to the way we were doing things in Genius Loci. And there is a recording of it, just not on anything yet. And we that was constantly in our rotation of playing live. So we haven't played live in a few years, but you know, we still get together and do music. It's mostly we mess around with the Viking stuff. He comes over and we intend to do things, and then we just talk and drink beer the whole time. So.
So the music has been. I mean, you have gone around
Yep.
the block in terms of what you play, the styles you play. You've got all kinds of stuff. My observation is the same is true with your fine arts.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because you and I worked together on some special effects and some other things.
Yep.
We've seen, if you saw the advertisement, you saw that you also do, is it certainly Viking, but is there other period reenactment
Yeah, so
connected to?
like with the reenactment side of things, you know, I got into making my own stuff. Like if it's stuff I'm going to wear, stuff I'm going to use, you know, sew my own clothes for it. I started doing leatherworking years ago, making things, and then messing around with woodworking and make furniture for camp and other stuff. And I got into blacksmithing inadvertently a few years back, which I just kind of dabble around in. And then through another friend of mine, he taught me silversmithing. So specifically towards the Viking age type of stuff. So I do, you know, I mainly do kind of on the side as a hobby. I do silversmithing, so I make rings and pendants and bracelets and stuff. But yeah, so all over the place.
Yeah, do you have some of that? Anything
Yeah.
that you've made?
I have a couple things with me.
Beth, you might. You want Beth to come over there? Or do you want to bring it up?
I'll bring them up here, and then
Okay.
if you want to.
While you're grabbing those, when do you sleep?
When do I
Put
sleep?
some
What you're doing.
I can't normally, so
So it allows you to exercise your late night artistry.
yeah, or right when I'm trying to sleep and I've relaxed myself, this idea pops in my head, and I'm like, God damn it.
Got to get that out.
So I brought a few things. So even though I said I dabble in blacksmithing, these are just kind of I made these for myself, and they're not the greatest of things, but they serve the purpose, and so these are some Viking saxes. Sax is another term for knife, and sheaths here. This was probably the first one I finished, so it's got a little roughness on it. But again, I thought that way that looked right. It's not necessarily the most historical thing, but that was the first one I finished. It has a nice handle with maple burl on it, and then of course a sheath to go with it.
Now, who did you learn that from?
So I originally learned this from Jason Nass. He was on Forged in Fire. It's kind of a weird story how that happened. Me and my wife give each other traditional wedding presents. So the one year iron came up, and I'm like, I know a guy that does that. I said, hey, can you teach me to make something simple? And then he would have people over on Mondays, and I just started going over there, and he would show me how to do stuff. So this is a kind of a utility knife. It's been well used. I use it for eating and doing other things. It was actually made out of a stainless steel ladle handle that fell apart, so I made a little everyday utility knife out of that.
Nice.
And then this is the most recent one I had made over at a friend's house. He did a little workshop class to make a small sax, and that was the product of that one. Needs a sheath still. So yeah, going over Jason's, I started dabbling in that, and then my friend Ike, I would go to his house, and he started teaching me silversmithing, and now I have a small forge in my house, or my garage, and where I do all the stuff. So here's a couple pieces of jewelry and a little leather pouch. So this is based off of an actual wallet that was found in northwestern Norway. So that kind of just unwraps. This is a silver bracelet with some stamps. So I made the stamps that you see on there. I forged those myself.
Wow. Jason is watching, or he was watching it, right? So, and he was talking in some type of Viking language. So you'll have to look
Oh,
at the
yes.
and see what he said.
So this is a ring pin. So this is like a brooch. So if you had a cloak, you would use this to pin your cloak together, kind of thing. But this is one of the most recent things I made. I had never made one of those before, so I needed to try it.
Cool.
And then this is a recent ring that I had made. This is based on a grave find in Iceland from the 10th century, from a woman's grave. So, yeah.
That's pretty.
So,
I like jewelry.
yeah.
So jewelry, you also make the clothing for.
Yeah, I've
that
sewn a
as
lot of my own clothing. Like, I don't make the material. I know people that weave their own textiles for that. I'm not going to go that far yet. So, but yeah, so like a lot of my tunics and pants and other things I've worn, I make that. But you know, trying to make your own stuff kind of takes you back to that time frame where they would have had to make it all themselves. You know,
Yeah.
or bought it from a market or something. But I thought, just trying to learn the different skills to do all this stuff kind of brings you closer to the actual reenactment part and the living history part of it. So,
Yeah, yeah. If anybody has any questions, send those along, and we'll get to them here before we finish this out. But you also do some writing and some painting and some other fine artwork. You
Yeah.
also, am I right that you created a board game?
yeah, I did. I'm a big gamer. You guys got about 3 more hours, and I'll tell you all my hobbies. So I've been a gamer forever, and not video games, like tabletop role-playing games like D&D, Vampire, that kind of stuff. Always been big into that. That's so about 6 years ago, a buddy of mine and me, we decided to make our own card game, and we were going to do a Kickstarter and everything, and so we designed a card game called The Inmates Are Running the Asylum. The Kickstarter didn't get fully funded, so it never got produced then. So at some point I just decided I just want to get this out. I'm not trying to make $1 million off of this. So I just kind of self-funded it and did it on a print-on-demand site. So there's a couple of those sites out there for books and cards for games and stuff. So it's up on a print-on-demand site, drive-through cards, and I could order my own copies of it and sell them physically, but it was a fun little process. We actually got to, besides creating a game, there was I did all the graphic design. We got to do a cool photo shoot for it and everything. We took some old portraits of people as if they were patients in a hospital, like turn of the century kind of thing. So we got to do a lot of fun stuff with that as well. But yeah, it's fun. I'm proud of it. Not many people have bought it, but it was a thing I did.
A thing you did?
What is the name of the site it's on again?
It's on drivethroughcards.com, and the game is called The Inmates Are Running the Asylum. So like writing for that. I haven't written a book yet, so.
So that is probably on its way, because is it going to be a graphic novel?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I would do a graphic novel at this point. I'd probably have somebody else that I know that does much better artwork than I do to do that.
Well, I mean, like I said when we first started, you know, the question may not be what have you done, but what haven't you done? Because I mean, you have really gone around, and you even that very first answer to the very first question, would you rather bowl a 300 game? I knew that you had done that. Whether you wanted to do kind of the Viking weekend, or whether you wanted to play upright bass in front of a large audience, you went back to the music because you said creatively you always return back to the music. But tell us, as we kind of are maybe wrapping things up, tell us about what ties all this together. In other words, I mean, it's creativity, but what's the common thread for you?
I have to think about that for a second. I mean, because, you know, doing things like music, painting, you know, there's obviously there's a skill there and there's a mechanic that you're doing, you know, as you're creating that, but the inspiration is there, just can come from anything for doing that kind of stuff. Doing something like this, the thing I love about this is there's a very methodical process. You know, there's obviously some creativity when it comes to the shape of what this is going to look like and how to get this handle to look like this and stamping the metal and what kind of design. I mean, there's that creative aspect, but there's a nice process. I think the common thread is I don't know, I just like to try a little bit of everything just to spread myself out, obviously, with the music instruments and the types of music. And I mean, I think the common thread is just me, really. I don't know if I have a definitive answer for that one.
Yeah, it's whatever's kind of stepping out in what's in front of you.
Yeah.
You're jumping all in on those, and
I can't half-ass it. That's for sure.
yeah, I absolutely love that. Are there any questions, Beth, that are coming in? And if you are not watching this live and you click into it later, if you just type in a question, even during the week or next week, Jeremy is tagged, I'm tagged, and so we'll get back to those responses. But from
Caitlin asked, how do you stamp the metals that you work with?
How do you stamp the metals? Well, it's a fairly simple process. You're not doing anything like when you're working with steel or anything. I mean, you're just cold stamping it, so you got your flat piece of metal out. And you'll usually want to, if depending on how you're working on it, you need to anneal it first, which is you're basically heating it in a certain way to kind of relax it so it's not as hard and brittle. And once it's there, you just got it laid out and you just figure out how you're going to stamp your designs. You have a punch or a little stamp and a hammer, and you just stamp your designs in. So, yeah.
What are you working on since it's 2020? So if you're watching this in the future and checking back, it's 2020. It is July, it's second half of July in 2020, and we're kind of slowly coming out of lockdown. We're not quite sure what it's going to look like here this fall.
Yeah.
But how's this affected kind of being locked down in your house? Are you finding this a creative time?
Yeah, I love it. I miss like having large get-togethers with my friends. I miss playing a show with bands and having, and going to see a show with bands and just seeing all the people that you get to see just in those time frames. Like, I miss all that stuff. I have zero issue not leaving my house. Between all the stuff I could be doing or not doing or putting off and just sitting on there, I'm totally fine with it. I mean, I got enough things to keep me busy. If I'm not actually doing something, I'm reading about something or just reading or doing whatever. Like I said, that part doesn't bother me, but again, having the big social things, that's the one thing I can't wait to be able to have again once we're all out of this. So,
what projects do you have in process or that you hope to finish in 2020?
Let's see. Oh, I got a couple projects, a couple pieces of Viking clothing that I haven't started yet. I am trying to do more jewelry. I have an Etsy store. I think there's one item left on there. It's been for a while because I'll make things and then they sell them immediately to people that do the stuff, so the Viking stuff. So I'm hoping to do more of that. Get a couple of those things done. I want to make a couple other instruments. similar to what I'm doing now, but just now that I've made a few, I want to go back and touch on that again. Those are probably the big projects creatively. I do have some music stuff. Again, me and Joe have been trying to record some things, and it's mostly just hangout time at that point because we don't see each other as often as we want. I had something else, but I forgot.
If folks are watching and you've been inspired by the many things that you've touched on, and somebody says to themselves or thinks to themselves, I was watching something or I read something or I just was doing some research and I happened to stumble into something that that sounds interesting to me. You've blazed a lot of trails. Like all of a sudden you're in Viking arts and you're making instruments. What's your recommendation as to how to jump into something brand new that you've never done before and kind of find yourself immersed in that new space?
I would say anything in general. I mean, the internet's your friend. I mean, we got a pocket computer with all of the knowledge in the world at our fingertips, and you just find yourself down the rabbit hole as you do, like just start looking up articles and, just get as much information as you can before you fully go into it, but especially if it takes a certain amount of supplies and materials to do, or tools or special things like that. But once I go into something and I go down that hole, I'm down there finding out what I can, and then I finally do it. So I mean, just take the dive. That's about all I can say.
Yeah. And then how do you connect with people that do similar things, or does the connection come before the art?
I think for me, a lot of the connection came before the art, because I started off doing the SCA, Society for Creative Anachronism, which I'm still loosely involved with. A lot of my close friends are in that as well, still a part of that. And then I found more on the reenactment side, the new group that I do stuff with as well. So I was into the stuff, and then it was like, now I want to learn how to make the stuff to do the thing that I want to do, is how that happened. But I mean, it doesn't have to happen that way for anybody else looking to get into it,
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thank you for sharing your journey, your wide range of music, your art, and we didn't even have a chance to talk about, because I think you did some poetry and some metered writing and some lyrics and some songwriting and some.
We never talked about makeup stuff either,
which is
how we met, actually.
Yeah, we didn't talk about special effects makeup. We didn't talk about.
Are you doing any special effects?
Nah, I don't really do a ton of that stuff anymore. Occasionally some sculpting for some random project or whatever, but nothing.
I heard Ski Wolf 5 is coming out.
Yeah.
That's 2021, right?
Yeah, that's 2021. Yeah, after Murder Hornets and the Plague is done.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, no, I haven't done. I'm pretty much done as far as the makeup stuff goes. I think I've moved on from that. That was a great point in my life, and I wouldn't have some of the friends that I have now because of it. But
yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you,
guys. If you share this out next week, we're gonna go ahead and draw both a T-shirt and a demo CD for Genius Loci. And this is more of your. You said again, your description is.
Yeah, it's dark, moody, electronic with some nice kind of dreamy guitar going on in there.
So you'll want that. So share out this video. Again, thanks for joining us today. Thank you for sharing along. Next week, we're scheduled to interview Taco Truck, which is that parody, the Cleveland parody group.
Oh.
They do some phenomenal stuff. So if things don't change, we'll be along with Taco Truck next week. And again, guys, thanks for joining us. Have a great week.